The smell of fresh bread drifted through the narrow streets of London in the year 1348. Every morning before sunrise, 16-year-old Thomas helped his father prepare loaves for the townspeople. Their small bakery stood beside a crowded marketplace where merchants shouted prices and children chased one another between wooden carts. Life was not easy, but it was predictable. Thomas believed every day would be the same as the last. He had no idea that a catastrophe was already moving toward the city, one that would change his life forever. One cold morning, a group of exhausted travelers arrived from the south. Their clothes were covered with dust, and their horses looked weak from a long journey. The travelers spoke in hushed voices about a mysterious illness spreading across Europe. Entire villages had reportedly become silent within weeks. Most people in the marketplace dismissed the stories as exaggerated rumors. Thomas did the same. Strange stories often traveled faster than facts. Yet an uneasy feeling settled over the town like a dark cloud. As the weeks passed, more reports arrived. The illness seemed relentless. It moved from city to city with terrifying speed. Merchants abandoned routes, and ships arrived carrying alarming news. Some said the disease was a punishment from heaven. Others claimed it was caused by poisoned wells or strange stars in the sky. Fear spread through the town long before the sickness itself arrived. People whispered about death during meals and prayed more frequently than ever before. One afternoon, Thomas noticed something unusual. Several market stalls were empty. A merchant who sold spices every day had suddenly disappeared. A blacksmith had closed his workshop without explanation. Even the usually crowded streets felt strangely quiet. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. The vibrant town Thomas had known his entire life was beginning to change. Then the sickness arrived. The first victims developed painful swellings beneath their arms and around their necks. Fever followed soon after. Families locked themselves inside their homes, hoping to avoid infection. Doctors wore unusual masks filled with herbs, believing the scents would protect them. Yet nothing seemed effective. The disease was merciless. Within days, entire households vanished from the busy life of the town. Thomas's father continued baking despite the growing danger. Bread remained essential, and hungry families depended on the bakery. Every morning they worked beside the hot ovens, while the city outside grew quieter. Thomas admired his father's resilience. Even during difficult times, he never complained. He simply focused on helping others survive. One rainy evening, Thomas returned home carrying supplies and found his father sitting alone in silence. A blanket covered his shoulders despite the warmth of the room. His hands trembled slightly. The sight filled Thomas with immediate concern. His father rarely appeared weak. As he stepped closer, he noticed the feverish shine in his father's eyes. The following days became a nightmare. His father's condition deteriorated rapidly. The fever intensified and exhaustion consumed his strength. Thomas searched desperately for medicine and advice, but resources were scarce. Everywhere he looked, people faced similar tragedies. The town's suffering had become overwhelming. Every street contained stories of loss and despair. When his father finally passed away, Thomas felt completely alone. The bakery suddenly seemed larger and emptier than ever before. The ovens remained cold for the first time in years. Grief settled heavily on his heart. Yet amid his sorrow, Thomas remembered something his father had always said. People need hope as much as they need bread. For several days, Thomas considered leaving the city altogether. Many others had already fled to the countryside. Survival seemed uncertain everywhere. However, while walking through the silent streets, he noticed hungry children sitting near abandoned buildings. Elderly residents struggled to find food. Families were running out of supplies. Suddenly, Thomas understood what his father had meant. The next morning, Thomas reopened the bakery. He worked alone before sunrise, kneading dough and lighting ovens that had remained cold for too long. The task was exhausting, but he refused to quit. By midday, the smell of fresh bread once again drifted through the neighborhood. People emerged cautiously from their homes. The familiar scent provided something they had almost forgotten: hope. News of Thomas's efforts spread quickly. Despite his young age, he became a symbol of perseverance throughout the community. Some families donated flour. Others helped gather firewood. The bakery gradually transformed into a place where people supported one another during their darkest hours. Fear still existed, but kindness began spreading alongside it. Months later, the epidemic finally began to weaken. Fewer church bells rang each day. More shops reopened across the town. Life would never be exactly the same, but signs of recovery appeared everywhere. The people who survived carried deep scars, yet they also possessed a newfound appreciation for every ordinary day. Years later, Thomas became one of the most respected bakers in the region. Travelers often heard stories about the baker's son who kept his ovens burning when fear threatened to extinguish hope itself. Many remembered the Black Death as a time of unimaginable suffering, but they also remembered the courage of a young boy who chose compassion over fear and service over safety. His legacy endured long after the epidemic became history.